Thank you for joining us for Working Through the Word, a ministry of the Richmond Church of Christ. Let's join our pulpit minister, Mike Johnson, as he brings today's lesson.
I wonder how many of you, the minute I said the word submission this morning, the hair on the back of your neck stood up. We're talking about that today because in our year-long series of Imagine, I can only imagine what it would be like to live in a world where there was submission without any complaint. Nobody argued. Nobody was cared. They just did what was needed to be done. On the other side of that coin, however, is asking the question, why don't I do it? Now, I'm convinced that this room and probably online, most everybody here has that same thought. Why don't I submit? What's going on? What's the problem? I want to. I think you want to. But the reality is that we often do not. So I need to understand where I am. And in understanding where I am, just being aware of certain things might just pay great dividends when submission is challenged by me. When I say submission, I'm talking about everything, every relationship, but I'm also including submitting to God and His Word and doing what God wants me to do at any particular time. All of that is involved in submission. So we think about answering that question. I have to admit that the first question I ask is, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Do you ever ask yourself that question? You ever look in the mirror and go, what is my problem? Why can I not fix this? Why don't I do better? Why don't I live the way I want to live? I invite you to Romans chapter 7. Now, there are some that have a little bit of a problem with this text and not understanding it, but I want to lay it out for you. I think it's pretty simple. But I think if we will listen to Paul, he'll tell us by his own life what his problem is. Because Paul has the same problem that I do. He had the same problem that we all do. And he, I think, was asking the question, what is wrong with me? Now in chapter 7, he begins in verse 1 by talking about the dominion over the law over someone as long as he lived. He's talking about the Jewish law. And he's saying, by the law that God gave, it has control over you. It has dominion over you as long as you are living. And he talks about marriage, and he puts it in that context. But then he says in verse 6, we've been delivered from the law. Yes, the law was set up to be your master for as long as you live. But now, through Christ, we've been delivered from the law. It's the Old Testament law, but I think he's also including the generic concept of law in that same concept. So he then says, now he's going back to the Jewish law, verse 7. So, is the law sin? If we were delivered from it, does that mean it wasn't any good and it was sinful and therefore we had to be delivered from it? And he goes, no, that's not true at all. Notice what he says. I would not have known sin except through the law. He said, look, I wouldn't even know the person I was if I didn't have the law explaining to me who I am. And notice how he says it. I would not have known covetousness unless the law had said, you shall not covet. In other words, I would be coveting something, and if I didn't know that it was wrong, I would never know that I'd sinned. And so this thing that I was doing, God in the law said, see, what you're doing is not right. And so he's saying there is a reason for the law, and it was a good reason. But then, verse 11, sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it killed me. In other words, I was alive, doing what I thought I should do, read the law, found out that I was wrong, and it killed me. I was alive, I read the law, now I'm dead. But I'm glad, because the law is holy and just and good. Now, look at verse 13. Has then what is good become death to me? Certainly not. But sin, now this is the tough part. Sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death in me through what is good, so that sin, through the commandment, might become exceedingly sinful. Okay, what did you just say, Paul? Okay. Sin is bad. And Paul has already said, I didn't know it. I couldn't know it unless God laid down the law and said, that's not good. That is sin. So sin, so that I would understand it, that it was sin, it produced death in me through what is good. I needed to know. I needed to know that I was not alive. In fact, I was dead, so that I could then be alive. That's all he's saying. And so sin through the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. By reading the law, I know how bad sin is. So Paul's statement is simply this. Law says, here's what sin is. Since I have been told that, I'm no longer deceived thinking I'm okay. I am dead so that I can be alive again. So what's my problem? Everybody here is where Paul was. We know what's right. We appreciate knowing what is right and what is wrong so that we can do what is right. We are so glad that somebody told us about Jesus. We are glad that somebody cared enough to help me understand what it means to be a part of God's family. But here's what I keep doing. What's wrong with me? Verse 14. We know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. Here's what's wrong with me. I'm never going to get over and defeat fully the flesh that I live in. You're not. We're not. Paul didn't. What's wrong with me? I'm flesh. And I have to get over that. But that's where I am. 15. For what I am doing, I do not understand. With Paul, I can say, I don't understand me. Do you understand you? Do you ever just look at yourself and go, why did I do that? Why did I think that? Why did I want that? I don't understand. I don't get it. For what I will to do, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. What's wrong with me? I hate myself. There are times that I hate myself, just like Paul said, because I hate what I'm doing. Well, then why do you keep doing it? There's the problem. There's the conundrum. That's what we're talking about. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good. I know it's wrong. Yes, I do it. But I admit that the struggle causes me to understand that the law is good. And it's trying to help me to be better. But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells, for to will is present with me. I don't understand it. I hate myself, but I want to understand it. Don't you? Don't you want to know how to fix it? Don't you want to understand why it is we struggle with submission to God? But how to perform what is good I do not find. I want to understand, but I just don't know what to do. I just keep repeating the same thing over and over. And Paul said, I don't get it. For the good that I will to do, I do not do. But the evil that I will not to do, that I practice. There's my conundrum. Why can't I just submit? Now, if I do what I will not to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. I know this is not really me. Sin's in me, but that's not really me. I find then a law that evil is present with me, the one who wills to do good. For I delight in the law of God according to the inner man. I don't understand it. I hate myself. I want to understand it. I just don't know what to do. But that's not really me. But I still delight in the Lord. Not one of you has decided to give up on the Lord. That's why Paul said, I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So, here's the conclusion. With the mind, I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin. What does he say? I don't understand it. I hate myself. I don't know what to do. I want to understand it. I don't know what to do. This is not really me. I still love the Lord. But I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. In my heart and in my mind, I am serving the Lord, even when the flesh overrides it. I'm not going to quit. Now, that's what's wrong with me. that's also what's right with me. Now flip over to Romans 8. Romans 8. I want to look at verse 5 beginning. Those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. The flesh and the Spirit are warring against each other. When I ask the question, what's wrong with me? Why can't I submit? I'll give you the generic answer. Paul gave it right here. This is the universal generic answer. Here it is. The flesh is warring against the Spirit. That's the thing. In cartoon form, it's the good angel on one side and the bad angel on the other side. That's the generic answer to understand. There's a war going on. Verse number 6. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Every person in the world is looking for those two things, life and peace. Everyone. Everybody. Life and peace. Some think they're going to find it through just turning loose and doing whatever you want to do. And Paul said, I understand that submission to God is where I can find true life and peace. Verse 7. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. The flesh is never going to be fully subjected to the Lord. Just not. Verse 8, so then those who are in the flesh cannot please God. The generic answer to why can I not submit? The generic answer is really simple. Because the flesh wants to do what it wants, while the Spirit is calling you to do something else. And as long as we are here, we're going to be fighting that battle. That is a fact. Now, the positive side is this. At least you got the Spirit in the battle. There are many people that seem to have just given up, and they're just turned over to sin. And the flesh is taken over, and the Spirit is not a part of their life anymore. At least you and I, while we're fighting ourselves, trying to figure out why we can't submit, at least we're in the struggle. The Spirit is with us. We're fighting it out. That's what we want to do. So, that's the generic answer. Let me give you the more specific answer. This is when it comes down to you and me being honest with ourselves, okay? And I sat and looked at me a long time. I hope that you can look at you, and maybe some of these will be your answer too, specifically. Why don't I submit? Because I really don't want to. David, in Psalm 51, wrote that psalm about his sin with Bathsheba in 2 Samuel 11. Have you studied that enough to realize how many opportunities he had to stop? He's looking from the palace roof, and he sees the woman bathing. Not her problem. That's what they all did. He had a chance. He could have simply turned away, and it's over. But he didn't. Then he gets it in his mind, hey, I'm the king. How about I bring her up here? He could have said, get out of my head, thought, gone. but he didn't. And when she came to his bedroom, he could have said, I've made a big mistake, go home. But he didn't. Now she's pregnant with child. And he could have said, I've made a big mistake. We have to fix this. Let's get your husband in here. Let me apologize. But he didn't. He brought her husband in, got him drunk. He didn't have to do that, but he did. So that maybe he would cover up the pregnancy, go home for the night with your wife. But he was too good for that. And when it didn't work, he could have said, listen, I've really messed up. I really want to tell you what the problem is. But no, he sent him back to war to be killed. He didn't have to, but he did. And even after that, he could have said, I have really gone too far. I am wrong. He didn't. Took a prophet to come and point out his error. You know why I don't submit? Because I really don't want to. I really don't want to. Why do I not submit? Because in that moment, I'm not convinced I've done anything wrong. Judas Iscariot interests me. Matthew 27. When he betrayed Jesus, and then he took the piece of silver and threw them back and said, I have betrayed innocent blood. He was not rebellious. He was not trying to overthrow the teaching of Jesus. That's what the leaders were doing. He didn't want Jesus' ministry to end. That doesn't make any sense. Therefore, the only thing that makes sense to me is that he thought that he was helping Jesus some way. And he convinced himself he wasn't really doing anything wrong. Sometimes I don't submit because I've convinced myself for that moment, it's really not wrong. Sometimes I don't submit because I'm like Achan, Joshua 7. When they went to take the city of Jericho, and God said, everything in the city is mine. Don't take anything. And Achan found some treasures that he wanted to keep. And when it was revealed, because he tried to hide them, he was punished. Like Achan, I don't submit because in that moment, I'm willing to risk for the temporary, immediate reward. Oh, I know it's wrong. But I'm willing to take the risk. Because in the moment, I like that reward. Sometimes I don't submit because in the moment, I'm like the prodigal son. He just didn't care. Give me my inheritance. I'm going to do what I want to do. He just didn't care. Maybe I don't submit because in that time, I just don't care. Or maybe, finally, in 2 Samuel 24, when David, in his own pride, decided, I want to know how many fighting soldiers I have. He told his general to go count them. And Joab, his general, said, David, we have the Lord on our side, and he is more than any number of soldiers you have. Don't do this. But he did anyway. And then the Lord came to see him. Sometimes I don't submit because in the moment, I act in the moment without thinking this thing through. And if I would simply stop and think for just a minute, I might be willing to submit. Well, I can imagine a world where everybody, particularly me, submits without complaint in every relationship, in every work environment, in every decision, in every place that I am. But I only imagine it because I've never been there yet. But with Paul, may we say, but I'm not going to quit. If you're ready or need our help to submit, we're ready to help you. Let's stand and sing together.
We hope that you enjoyed today's broadcast, brought to you by the Richmond Church of Christ. We are located at 1500 Lancaster Road in Richmond, Kentucky. We meet at 9 a.m. each Sunday morning for Bible class, followed by our morning worship service held at 10 a.m. Our Sunday evening service is held at 6 p.m. Our midweek Bible study is held on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have Bible classes available for all ages on Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. If you are in the area, we would love to have you as our honored guest. If you're looking for a home church, we would love to make you part of our family here in Richmond. We hope this has been a blessing to you and pray that you have been strengthened and encouraged. Have a blessed day.